you know what you get if you feed a tribble too much?
A fat tribble.
The trouble with tribbles was so much fun. Now, the trouble we had with tribbles was keeping a straight face. It was just a lot of fun.
Well, I remember when the first story outline came in. At that time, it was entitled A Fuzzy Thing Happened. And it stayed with that title for a while and gave me no end of worry.
These are totally inexplicably little alien animals. And it's based on an idea from an old story called Pigs as Pigs. I don't know if you've ever read it. A British story where somebody sends a couple of guinea pigs by rail somewhere. They get held up because the people won't let it through either as pigs. They have no idea what a guinea pig is. And while they're going through all the paperwork, of course, the guinea pigs are becoming a population explosion.
I gave them a very good home, sir.
Where?
I gave them to the Klingons, sir.
Gave them to the Klingons.
Aye, sir. Before they went into warp, I transported the whole kit and caboodle into the air engine room, where there'll be no tribble at all.
It was the first and maybe only comedy we did was The Trouble with Tribbles.
How long have you had that thing, Lieutenant?
Since yesterday, Doctor. This morning I found out that she had had babies.
I take them back, a couple of them back on the ship, and the only problem was that they're born pregnant. And we were carrying a shipload of Quattro Triticale wheat from one place to another is the most important thing. And they get into it, and that's their favorite food. And they just multiply like crazy.
I felt that it went too far comedically, and it worried me about believability. I felt it was just a little bit too caricaturish, and it did worry me up until the time the show aired and we got the response, and it seemed like everybody liked it. And so my worst fears got banished, thankfully, and the cast did a wonderful job. Bill was very funny, and everyone was very funny.
One of the funnier things that was happening is they were having a terrible time with when the trap door opened and dumped all the tribbles on Captain Kirk. Well, the tribbles, they wanted a pile of them for looking like thousands, but the tribbles would hit the floor and spread out. So they did everything they could to try to put wads of newspaper around him, and the tribbles would just hit the newspapers and bounce away. So finally they put him in a box and filled that box with a whole bunch of soft stuff, and when the tribbles came out, they filled the box and came over, and that was finally what they did. Well, the stagehands, of course, loved it because they got to open a trap door and dump 600 tribbles on William Shatner about 20 times during that day.
There was one scene I remember that they piled the tribbles up on top of me. Somehow they fell out of a overhead bin or something, and I was above my rear end and probably up to my neck in tribbles. And then the stagehands all had tribbles around, and they pelt me with tribbles. So in the middle of the dialogue, the tribble would land on me, and I knew that, one of my friends up there in the flies had thrown them. And we had tribble ball fights afterwards. We'd just throw tribbles at each other. So the Tribbles was one of those shows that had such humor. It was a good joke. It was a good joke all the way along.
The people would sit there and throw these last little tribbles, and he couldn't say a thing. He couldn't even look up there and go, nothing. There was nothing he could do. And I'm glad he remembers that story, too, because he finally, of course, enjoyed the humor in it.
Some of the tribbles, you may be surprised to learn, were capable of motion. They had some sort of a little motor set up in them, and they would kind of tremble and quake. And for the rest of the movement, we had to depend upon the actors to surreptitiously move them around.
First we're going to Vulcan, then we're going to Altair, then we're headed to Vulcan again, and now we're headed back to Altair.
I think I'm going to get spacesick.
Gene handed me a batch of scripts for the second season with much more for Sulu to do. A few very interesting things and a couple of even exciting things for Sulu to do in episodes like Trouble with Tribbles, wonderful things for Sulu to do. And so I took the script with me and I had my lines memorized while working on the Green Berets. Unfortunately, we had bad weather and a lot of other difficulties, and the filming of the Green Berets went way beyond the schedule when I was supposed to be back in Hollywood to begin the second season of Star Trek. And so I missed out on a whole hunk of episodes.
George Takei says that when I came on, he felt it was a bit of an intrusion and that I had usurped him because he was away and several of the episodes had been originally written for him. They had to rewrite for me.
So here's this guy that, comes in from left field, sailing in on pure good luck.
He was a little unsettled by that and felt, some animosity toward me.
And steals everything that I was looking forward to.
I never saw that. He's either an extremely good actor or he has exaggerated his own venal behavior, because I only remember him as being a very nice fellow.
It's kind of ironic that a guy a relationship that started out in hatred became a very good friendship.
Report, mister. I am only picking up physical impulses from the three of them.
The Davy Jones thing is quite true. They were looking for somebody who would create the same kind of following that Davy Jones and the Monkees had. And I've never met him, but I don't think we would look that much alike, or we would have even then. But there was that sense that I was cut from the same image, which is quite ironic because I'm probably at least 10 years older than he is. That was the idea, and my mail was generally from people from age 8 to 14 years old. That's generally the mail that I got. And that was the demographic they were looking for.
We didn't have any young characters in the cast at that time. In other words, the actors were upwards of 30 on average. And the Beatles were hot at that point still. Of course, they had been hot for a while. Gene Roddenberry decided that we need a young character in here to just add that younger point of view and give a little freshness and maybe a little arrogance of youth into the script. So he brought in a Russian, and it became Chekhov. And they cast, and they wound up with Walter Koenig, who I think was wonderful.
Does everybody know about the suite but me?
Well, not everyone kept in. It's a Russian invention.
Oh.
The Russian I was playing was not a very controversial Russian, He made jokes about things being invented in Russia, and that was about the only reference we made. And as I say, my mail was all mostly, in pencil and lined paper from, very young kids. I don't remember ever getting any mail about what you're doing with a commie on your show or something of that nature, even though that was certainly the period of the Cold War. But I think it speaks to the fact that the character was not portrayed in a way that would engender those kinds of reactions.
We were trying to find the place for him, and a young romance was always popular, so we tried that. But I think one of the things that was always nice about him was the fact that he was always coming up with something Russian that someone else, someone Russian had done first. Anytime you talked about some significant achievement or, a philosophy or whatever, it was always Russian.
If I could give the transfusion without loss of time or efficiency, I would. Sarek understands my reason.
Well, I don't. It's not human. Oh, that's not a dirty word. You're human, too. Let that part of you come through.
The ones I wrote, I think my absolute personal favorite is Journey to Babel, because it went into the Vulcan relationships between families. I think that it's a story that's universal and timeless, that communication between parents and children. And that, to me, was the big story. The rest of it was an adventure, it was a spy story, it was a mystery, it was an action story. But all in all, it was really about the parents and the child. And, of course, it was a grown-up child and grown-up parents. In other words, Sarek was 102 at the time. But there still had been a vast lack of communication between them, and they needed to find each other as parent and child.
Do you want to know how I feel about your logic?
Emotional, isn't she?
She has always been that way.
Indeed. Why did you marry her?
At the time, it seemed the logical thing to do.
Mark had a real sense of the dignity and authority that the character needed. Jane was very human, which was exactly what that character needed. They were terrific together. They asked me about any suggestions that I had about the Vulcans, how to deal with the Vulcan ideas. And I said that I thought, I had introduced this by that time, and I had introduced the neck pinch into Star Trek, and I said, it seems to me that I have kind of come around to thinking that the Vulcans in some way are hand-oriented people. There's a lot that has to do with their hands. And I said, maybe you and Jane could find a way to demonstrate that when you walk together or when you work together. And they ended up doing this to each other's hands as they walked. Instead of holding hands, they touched fingers, which was, I thought it was a wonderful touch.
Spock, I'm asking you, what's wrong?
I need rest. I'm asking you to accept that answer.
I remember that one very well. Excellent script. Very, very poetic, very dramatic, intense, and important, I felt immediately, for Spock and the Vulcans, because it was the first time we were going to go to Vulcan, first time we were going to see other Vulcans. We had never seen any other Vulcans show up to that point. And Live Long and Prosper was written in that script by Theodore Sturgeon for the very first time we ever used those words.
Live long, T'Pau, and prosper.
Live long and prosper, Spock.
I shall do neither. I have killed my captain and my friend.
There was the scene where I was to meet T'Pau, the leader of the Vulcan people, who was a very dignified, regal, wonderful lady. Celia Lovsky, the actress, played her beautifully. Great stature, importance. And when we first meet, I thought we should have some special kind of greeting. So I suggested to the director that we do this, and he went for it. We had a little trouble because she couldn't do it. She said, we worked it out. We got her to the point where she held her hand in the proper shape with her other hand, out of sight of the camera. So when I raised my hand, she was ready and she raised hers, and that's how we got that done into the show. And there was that wonderful payoff where I believed that I had killed Kirk. And she says to me, live long and prosper, Spock. And I said, I shall do neither. I've killed my captain and my friend. Great moment. Beautiful writing,
There can be no excuse for the crime of which I'm guilty. I intend to offer no defense. Furthermore, I shall order Mr. Scott to take immediate command of this vessel.
Don't you think you better check with me first?
Captain! Jim!
And then we're on the ship, and I'm telling McCoy that he has to take charge because I'm going to resign. I can't continue as an officer on this ship. And in walks Bill Shatner as Kirk, and Spock smiles, for a moment. It was a very, very exciting episode to shoot, to perform. It was so beautifully written, and great casting of the other people. It was very good.
Mirror, Mirror was a wonderful episode in which you got a reflection of an alternate planet in which we, being the good guys, that planet was, in our alternate universe, the negative.
Bill Tice designed these costumes, which were two-piece, and Uhura's belly button was going to show. Oh, horrors. Now, where anyone got the idea that viewing poor Jeannie's belly button or Uhura's belly button was going to absolutely destroy the masculine morals of this country, I don't know, but there we are. And so, to get away with that, I took the quality control person to lunch because I was on the set that day. And Jean says, take her to the executive commissary. And while we had lunch, this sash, which had actually been up around Uhura's waist, was folded down about 3 times and retied, and so we get a lovely Uhura belly button showing, and it got by everybody and, appeared on the screen. And so far as we know, it did not cause one single breakdown in morality anywhere.
Mirror, Mirror, we got the chance to be the very polar opposite, a dark, evil, cutthroat, conniving, totally amoral, ambitious, lustful. The Sulu that we know and love has a fondness and affection and discipline, controlled and polite and civilized. Well, the character in Mirror, Mirror doesn't have any of that at all, and he's able to express his raw heat.
There came a time when our weapons grew faster than our wisdom, and we almost destroyed ourselves. We learned from this to make a rule during all our travels. Never to cause the same to happen to other worlds.
We had the overarching authority of science fiction, and we could go anywhere with that. And under that guise, we could also talk about the issues of the day. And there were a lot of things going on. We had seen a president assassinated. We had seen a senator running for president assassinated. We'd seen the governor of Alabama, critically injured. We had seen race riots. We had seen riots on campuses. We had seen so much going on. The war in Vietnam, which no one was allowed to talk about on television if you had a contemporary show. But under science fiction, we were able to get in commentary on Vietnam. So under that guise, we tackled a lot of issues, cloaked them in science fiction, and did our stories anyway.
The only thing that's truly yours is the rest of humanity. That's where our duty lies. Do you understand me?
It came at a time when the entire world was in turmoil. There was the Cold War, and one didn't know who the enemy was, or was identified as the USSR. But he said, no, we didn't do that. We didn't push the button and go boom. We transcended that foolishness.
We reflected the times. In fact, one of the things that I think we are most respected for is how topical we were, not only in terms of fads, but in terms of issues, social and political issues. I think all of that it's been, covered many, many times, that we used science fiction and the future to mask discussion of topics and issues and things that were going on that really needed to be addressed and weren't, because people were timorous about doing so.
I loved any of the episodes in which the various characters were able to interact with one another and advance the storyline at the same time. We were the first ensemblist cast, but Hollywood was not quite ready for it, and we became international heroes to people.
Do you remember the 20th century brush wars on the Asian continent? 2 giant powers involved, much like the Klingons and ourselves. Neither side felt that they could pull out.
Yes, I remember. It went on bloody year after bloody year.
Well, I think every writer's dream is to just write the best stories they can and have them remembered. I think some of mine are, and that's my pleasure. What I wanted to give to the audience was my young understanding at the time of humanity, because remember, I was in my 20s, what I understood of the world, and what Gene Roddenberry's message was that we are all human beings together. And if we're going to have this world survive, we have to go there together.